Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the Love is Blind podcast. I am Allie.
And I'm Andre.
And we are here to talk about episode 9.
Episode 9 called
Love on the Rocks.
Love on the Rocks. And certainly that is the case. And can you read that episode description for us?
Sure can. It says, dress fitting stir up heartfelt emotions. As the couples head out on final dates before their wedding days, doubts and differences still loom.
Indeed.
Yeah, so before we get started analyzing this episode, we do want to say thank you to everybody who's been listening. We really appreciate that. And yeah, if you're not following us already, please do so.
Yeah,
It's helpful.
hit that follow button in whatever podcast app you use, whether that's Google Podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Any one of those things will, first of all, it'll let you know when we release a new episode. And second of all, it really, really helps us out in getting a little bit more visible so other folks can find this podcast and listen to it and join in on this conversation. So absolutely love it if you could,
Follow us.
what do they say? Like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe. Also on Instagram, Love is Blind Podcast, and you can interact with us there if we're saying something, which is actually pretty fun when people do that. So it's been nice to hear what you think, not only about the people on the show, but also our take on the people on the show. So,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. So let's dive in. So this episode starts with Izzy and Stacy getting their marriage license.
Yeah, which is, honestly, seeing their excitement at it really kind of sold me on their relationship. I was like, oh, you guys are leaning in pretty hard into this.
Yeah, I mean, and same with, Milton and Lydia. It's exciting to do this. And I think the truth is, like, both of these couples, because there's two, have good relationship moments. It's just, should they get married? Do they have that good of a relationship? I don't know, right?
Yeah, that's a good point, because ultimately, just because you have some nice moments, it doesn't mean that that's the basis of a good marriage.
And again, we cannot forget that it's all being very edited, so we do not actually know what someone's entire day looked like. But assuming, anyway. So those are my thoughts with that. But yes, then we come over to dress shopping day, and it starts with the ladies
Dress shopping,
walking in with Vanessa Lachey, who seems completely disconnected from this cast, but
Yeah, it's honestly, whenever the hosts come on, I'm like, oh yeah, you exist. I didn't.
right. Nick's just casually golfing. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Oh, yeah,
didn't realize you were coming for this.
Nick casually golfing was. I don't know whether like he was told like, hey, can we get a shot of you doing this? But yeah,
Look cool, man.
Yeah, just
look cool.
Just like like hang like you're one of the you're one of the guys.
Like you weren't just waiting in anticipation for this moment.
Yeah,
you were just doing your thing. Yeah. I don't know. I thought that was funny.
Definitely.
But yeah, we start with the dress shopping. They get some advice on marriage that's very like Love is Blind style, or I think that's what it is that the hosts, they seem so scripted, and like they keep pitching this like, but is love blind thing, which is like, that's not a real way to interact with somebody. So I can see why the people on the show are like, this is weird for us too. We're supposed to be connected to you, but really this is an inauthentic, very awkward exchange. So let's not pretend that this is different.
Yeah, and we get some, a little awkward conversation with Nick and Milton and Izzy. Izzy's like, kind of just like, yeah, I'm really excited. And then Nick is like, and anybody can talk. Kind of like is pushing a little bit to like get Milton to say something too. And we see like some of the folks that both on the brides and the grooms, like the guests that they brought with them, and that's always kind of interesting to see who they've chosen to bring.
Stacy's mom or Stacy's family saying that they love Izzy,
Yeah.
Which was absolutely not the impression that was given to us after they met. But again,
Yeah,
editing. Editing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Who knows what we're missing?
Yeah. I also like that Stacey brought Best Supporting Actress, Renee.
Yeah. Wait. Was that Renee came with Stacey, or did she come with Lydia?
I think
That
she
part-
came with Stacey. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Lydia brings her. Yep. No, sorry. Lydia brings her mom and brother and another friend, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it is, we get some emotional
Mm-hmm.
reactions from people, like looking at their, family members looking at their daughters in dresses,
Mm-hmm.
and we have Stacey, who's looking for something that's unusual. She says, we don't. I have zero recollection of the guys
Actual
trying out anything.
Neither do I. I do remember the ladies' dresses, which
Yeah, 100%.
they were great.
Yeah, they look fantastic. But then like I feel like when we turn to the guys, I have zero memory. Maybe it's just because I think they just get measured and then that's it. But I do. Look, maybe it's because I haven't seen like Say Yes to the Dress or anything like that, but I do find it funny how immediately people are like, nope, that's not you, or like, yes, that's you. I was like, oh, this.
This is absolutely how all wedding dress shopping
how,
goes.
how decisive. Like, people are
Yes,
like,
well,
this
you
is
need
really,
that. You
really
need
impressive.
that because you want people who can be honest with you. Oh, yes, this is absolutely a thing. Also, fun fact, I am pretty sure I have that dress that Stacey's sister is wearing. It was like on a Dress Like Kate Middleton for $30 BuzzFeed.
Right.
See, new girl. I also get complimented on it. But yeah, I thought Stacey's first dress was actually quite beautiful, and she says it was boring, but I didn't think so. I thought this dress she ends up going with was a little bit more classic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think emotionally they all seem, or Izzy seems really into it. Stacey seems into it. Milton is questioning.
Yeah. I mean, also a lot
He's
of the
saying she's
things.
explosive.
Well, yeah, but the things I was gonna say, like the things that he says about Lydia, he's like saying them with a smile on his face, like this is a compliment. But he's always saying like she's a firecracker, she's explosive, and I'm like, I mean, okay, I can see kind of what you're saying, but it's also like you need to add that context there every time, because sometimes it's really unclear whether you were saying it as a positive or a negative until you say like, oh, it's so great, she's explosive, that's so great.
I mean, I think he has mixed feelings about that, and that's why it's like that. Yeah, he's not sure. I think he finds that exciting, but also it's so different that he's not sure about that. Yeah. So, but he's feeling that. He's feeling like, he says here, I sometimes have to use words to make sure I'm staying on the right track. And remember in the last episode, I was talking about like how he grew up in the family was checking out and dissociating, trying to lay low.
Yeah.
This is that same thing that's happening with her. He's like, I need to be able to choose my words correctly, but the impact that can have on Lydia is that she feels like, where are you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can certainly see how, that's coming across to Lydia like that. And I mean, he even says it right here that he previously, I think he felt like he was a little bit no filter, and it seems like his friends and family agree with that to a certain extent. And yeah, it is interesting to see how he's kind of dealing with this. Especially he seems to be a little self-conscious about the fact that he's not as emotional and vulnerable, which I think it's also both between like, trying to be like a manly man, but also what's true about it is that he is a black man, and that there is within that community that kind of impetus to like show less emotion, and it's
you're not allowed to.
Yeah, and
you can't get angry.
Yeah, and this kind of comes down to the way society like views others, and I think he's being very cautious about that, and I think his family
Yeah.
has been cautious about that.
And I think I think we should talk about that more when they have their conflict later, because I
Right.
think that's a really important dynamic of it. But yeah, that's how he has been taught that it's okay to be, is you have to stay within this narrow range of emotion that you at least show, right? So it's very different for him to be experiencing Lydia
Yeah.
with her passion and her large emotions, and her family that's very like, we love you, as opposed to his family, which is like, we're very formal and reserved, and
Yeah.
we have to make sure you're okay. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
see
More
we're-
dress shopping.
more dress shopping. I did love the fact that, you know, as Lydia's like trying to like break it down and twerk inside her wedding dress, that I felt like a little bit like Stacy's family was getting like a little bit like prim and proper, like uncomfortable, being like, oh, okay, like, all right. But I think Lydia was having a good time. Looks like she's having a lot of fun with this day.
Oh yeah. Well, it sounds like a pretty fun time. I did think it was interesting. I didn't notice this when I watched it the first time, but Stacy brought Renee as her friend. But when the scene starts, it's Lydia who's holding hands with Renee to come in. And it just made me think like, yeah, I don't think Stacy made any friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a little unclear who Stacy got close to in there, if anybody. And I mean, and ultimately, you know, this is not to say that
she's not here to
she's
make
not here to
friends.
make friends. She isn't. Like that's not the goal of the show.
She's here to meet her husband, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just thought that was interesting, and it's like comports with what I would kind of expect about her, is that, like, you know, she's just kind of a hard person to be close to, it sounds like. It does sound like she's tight with her family though. But yeah, I mean, the beginning of this episode is just basically like, hey, dresses, you're beautiful, like, hey, family. So let's go ahead and zip forward to their dates.
Yeah.
And it starts with Izzy taking Stacy on the date to go fly a plane.
to go fly a plane, which
Let's
I didn't
go fly a plane.
I didn't really know where the scene was going. I thought that maybe they were going to fly the plane, you know, because you can get like a flight lesson or whatever. But ultimately they're like in a back cockpit of a bomber,
Yeah, just being shown around.
just kind of being shown around. And I was like, I guess this is exciting, but isn't this the
Yeah.
equivalent of just being, I mean, it
Being
is
a passenger.
just being on it's just being on a plane, right?
I think that I've never done this. I think there's like a thrill to being up there that high in such a small plane.
Oh.
I did wonder when I was watching, like, did she mean she enjoys flying them? But yeah, it's, you know, it's a cute date idea. I do
Totally.
think if he's doing this to show her like what she'll be getting for the rest of her life, that seems a little disingenuous.
I mean, look, her dad was like, sometimes she'll want
Sometimes you gotta
to
go first
love,
class.
sometimes wants to fly first class.
Sometimes Liv wants to sit in the back of a small plane.
And just look out a tiny little window on the side.
Yeah, it's like love. She's fickle.
Yeah, I mean, if they'd at least let him sit in like the bomber seat, you know, and just like so they could see like the ground from the front, and then we get a lot of B-roll of planes, which I'm
Planes.
sure some
Two
camera
couples.
some camera guy was like, we can just film planes. We're in a plane place. We're in a plane museum. Whatever.
They don't
it is.
even let him drive.
Yeah.
Reminds me of like those duck tours that I used to take a lot in Boston. Where
Also-
like I'd always ask to drive the duck.
Right. Can you imagine a more cold and weird place to have like a dinner
that,
other
like,
than just
hangar?
like a
Yeah.
hangar? Just
I thought that was
a
strange
hangar.
too.
And I can imagine that the cameras were maybe like 30 feet. Like, that's such a weird setting to have like a romantic dinner, is just an empty, middle of an empty hangar.
Yeah. And then,
Yeah.
you know, Izzy makes the date starts. It's romantic. Izzy says he's feeling good. Stacy kind of shoots him down with we haven't had any meltdowns lately. So there's just a little dig right to start, but then it does seem like they overall have a very good date where
Yeah.
they're reconnected. They're doing well. I mean, that's the thing, is they do have things that you're like, I can see why you would be into each other.
Yeah.
But there's just too much too soon. Yeah. And I do think it's sweet that Izzy is saying that he really enjoys Stacy's family.
Yeah, and again, we're missing, despite the fact that there's only two couples, we're missing a lot of interesting potential information about them. Like, we've already started integrating our families. Okay, when?
Yeah,
when did that
just
happen?
once.
Was that
And
the
that
dress
Izzy
shopping?
had a great time, which again,
Yeah.
not how it was depicted when we saw it. Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's cute that he wants that and that she wants that for him. They do care about each other. I think they really do care about each other.
Yeah.
They just have their own stuff that gets in the way.
Yeah.
And that's tough to see.
We do get that little glimpse into, some more Izzy personal life where he talks about, how like he's only kind of going to have one half of his family there because I guess his other side of his family is being kind of judgmental about this experience/experiment. Which, honestly, I'd be interested to learn a little bit more about that.
Right.
The fact that they seem to maybe they don't trust this experience. They don't trust where this is kind of coming from, whether this is genuine. But and we don't know about that, right? So
yeah.
It would be interesting to have known a little bit more about this little glimpse that's coming out.
Yeah, I mean, if it is this Jehovah's Witness side, that could be
Right.
something that would
Right.
be very contrary to that.
That is something that I had kind of like forgotten about in terms of his past. You're right. That might be.
Yeah, I keep remembering it because it just feels so formative, and it just tells you so much about how he's acting right now makes sense, in the context of how he responds in relationships. But then they have this like really cute dance, and I think it's a nice date. It seems like on the whole it was a really, really nice time, despite the weirdness of being the only couple eating in an airplane hangar with cameras all around you.
Yeah. And oh man, can we just say that's,
if there's ever a time I feel at ease.
What a contrast to the later dinner, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But first of all, we get Milton with his sister.
We cut to a scene of them having a meal together.
And it is funny how there are points in this where I think his sister is kind of like pushing back, because he's kind of like, our family is different than Lydia's family, and his sister's kind of like, we're not that different. What are you talking about? What is it? And then he, like, when he finally kind of says like, we're not as giving, and she's like, well, we're giving. He's like, we're not giving with emotions. She's like, oh yeah, we're not giving with emotions. She agrees so immediately with that particular point. But it is. We do get this like protectiveness from his sister that I think, she just cares about him, but it's always really difficult to see somebody make a decision and then other people kind of like push back against that decision. Even if it is, they're doing it because they care about him. But maybe it's just me. I just feel awkward around them, around those situations,
Oh yeah, of course. Well, because it's like a struggle because you want to see people be supported. I also understand why she's pushing back, but I don't think he's enjoying what feels like being controlled. And that's kind of what it's all about. And so he's saying things where I can see why she's like, we're giving, we're passionate, and feeling kind of defensive about that because she's taking it as a negative, like an insult or something almost. Or at least him, I don't know, not appreciating the family. But I think for him, there's an underlying like, hey, I brought my fiance over to meet you guys, and you guys were kind of bullies to her, or at least interrogated her a lot, and I'm having some feelings about that. So there's just like a underlying
Yeah.
dynamic here.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like his sister even says, we have, like, for all of your major decisions, we've been involved.
Yeah.
Which is an
Yeah.
interesting thing to say, like, to an adult person.
Right.
To be like, you previously let us have all of the say in your decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And he's kind of like, okay, but ultimately this is my decision. And if you guys were to go against it, but I want to do it, I'm probably going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, yeah, there is something. I think every time I see the situation where like one of the members of a couple is kind of selling this idea to just like a friend or a family member, and their spouse to be is not present, those to me are some of the more convincing kind of like, okay, you guys, because like. They're not trying to prove, like, he's not trying to prove something to Lydia by telling his sister about how much he like cares for her, right? He's just expressing how he feels. It feels like the most honest of those expressions of care in some ways. Because he's not trying to like protect Lydia's feelings in this moment. He's just kind of saying like, I want to do this because I care about her, because I love her. Like, so, yeah, I find these moments the most convincing in terms of like, okay, they have something. Yeah.
I think I walked away with a kind of different orientation on the scene, although I agree with what you're saying too. But my also take on it was that what he's responding to is, I don't like being controlled by you. And so
Right.
speaking up for his and Lydia's relationship is not totally, even for me at least, didn't seem like it was 100% about that relationship, but more about like, hey, I'm making a big move and I'm doing something and I don't like you trying to control my life.
Right.
Yeah. But I also do think when he speaks about it, it does come from a genuine place. So I think there's just both of those dynamics happening simultaneously.
Yeah. I am curious what you think about this repeated sort of point that's coming from Milton's family of like marriage is like a business arrangement. It seems to be something that they're like really focused on. And I wonder whether it's something about like, whether they're not seeing Milton benefiting from like what it is that they're looking for and not seeing, I guess. And because it kind of goes against the things that they're otherwise saying, which is, we don't want to see you hurt. And then when they talk about it being like a business arrangement, I'm like, this seems more transactional than that. What is it that you are actually like looking for? What are they actually judging about Lydia? Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're judging the speed of the relationship. They seem very conservative, ambitious. Didn't he like live in Japan for a while? I assume that was for someone's career ambitions in the family. And just sort of want the same for him, you know? And I think that part of it is just, it would be anybody coming in would be subject to scrutiny. I also do think the fact that she's different and like how she processes emotion, but also her being Puerto Rican, I think that's part of it too. Yeah. And I don't know where he went to school, but I'm imagining somewhere prestigious, and I'm sure that stuff is important to them too. And Lydia went to school in Puerto Rico, and maybe it's like a wonderful school in Puerto Rico, but they have their very conservative notions of what's acceptable. I just think there's probably those things going on as well, you know?
And I can definitely see what you mean, because as an immigrant myself, I've certainly seen that dynamic of, you know, parents who went to what are considered prestigious universities in my home country, and yet when moving to the U.S., they're seen as like not worthwhile or not worth it, even though their education is good, you know. But there is that aspect there that I can certainly see that.
Yeah.
Also, what did you think about Milton saying he doesn't believe in hyphenating last names?
You know, yeah, okay. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to his sister's point, I really hope Lydia knows what she's getting into.
Yeah, I hope so too. Milton's pretty conservative too. I think he's like the wild card of the family, but the family's really conservative, so that's going to be a thing for him as well, right?
Yeah.
So that's that scene. We next come over to Stacy and Izzy packing up.
Well, we get to Stacy and Izzy
packing
in the middle of not in the middle,
time
the
in a
ending
very tense
of
moment.
Yeah, the ending of what appears to have been a very tense discussion, and it's a little unclear from the conversation whether this is just them packing to move away or whether, because Izzy says something along the lines of like lots of fun, or like lots of fun memories in here, right? And it almost makes it seem as though like they're like moving apart, like that's the way it seems. And they begin alluding to a conversation that we haven't seen on screen. And it kind of takes a while to even find out what happened, which, as far as we can tell, ultimately in the end, it's that he's got a bad credit score. Is that really that's ultimately what we're coming down to, right?
Yeah, it seems like it.
Okay.
Yeah. They must not have caught their fight on camera.
Right.
Otherwise, I think we would have seen it.
Right.
But yes, it is hard to track what's going on. It was like, does he have a bunch of credit card debt? Does he, right? Yeah. But I do think that my take was that he used to have credit cards, then paid them off or closed them or something. But anyway, the impact is that his credit score is not good and he's not able to get a credit card.
It's more than that too, because he says it wasn't even that much. It was like $3,500. So it sounds as though he might have had like some unpaid debt.
Yeah.
That
impacted his credit.
Drove his credit score down. And but
Stacy's really upset because she feels like he didn't tell her and he was lying to her.
Which, I actually can certainly see her point, and at the same time, they are working on a real tight deadline to open up about all of their lives. It is. You'd think that this would be a pretty big one, because there are a bunch of things that kind of happen and merge when you're getting married, and this is one of them, right? This is certainly one that you might want
such a hard one too.
A partner to be aware of. Yeah. Not only money, but just like there's a weird aspect. Like credit scores are so weird. They're like financial reputation, right? Like that's what it is. It's like structured financial reputation, and I am very well aware of the fact that credit scores are pretty problematic. Like there's a lot of issues with credit scores, but also they affect a lot of your life, right? They affect your ability to like do a lot of things. So I can certainly see a little bit of both sides here, but I don't know why I too also don't always trust Izzy. So I think, there's a little bit of me that's like maybe a little bit more on Stacy's side than I'd originally even thought I would be in any sort of like situation. But like, I'm kind of like, you could have opened up a little bit, not like the day before the wedding, because they're at one day before the wedding, it seems like he kind of waited to the last minute to bring this up.
I agree. Yes, his best self would have brought it up earlier, but Stacy's already made such a big deal about money, and it's probably something he already had shame about, and now this, for me, and I don't know what you feel about this. So I kind of think that Stacy was focusing on, you lied to me, you didn't tell me, as the thing she was upset about.
Yeah.
But I think at the core, she actually is upset that he has a bad credit score.
No, I think you're right. I think, yeah. I think you're pretty spot on about that.
Right. But it doesn't feel like she can say that, because again, I think for her struggle is, am I really saying you're the best I can do?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's that's really not sitting well with her. So it's
that sentence that you just said, "Are you the best that I can do?" That's
I think she's thinking that a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, it's kind of a shitty, gross sentence to ask about a person that you're supposedly in love with.
Yeah, well, agree. That's why she's focusing on the lie, which is like a more neutral thing to be upset about.
Right. I mean,
versus the bad credit score, which is not, you're not allowed to say that, right? Yeah.
I mean, we've certainly seen that before from other folks who have,
and from this dynamic many times.
Yeah. I mean, there's certain I think we've touched on this before with JP and Taylor, but the idea of like kind of like emotional intelligence and kind of latching onto a more neutral point that makes it easier for you to like not address a difficult topic,
right?
Not address, especially one.
It's the makeup.
Yeah, it's totally the makeup. It's not that like I don't know how to behave around you. It's like it's totally the fact that you lied. It's not the fact that I have a particular view about money that I feel like weird.
And I'm worried that I'm, hitching my horse to.
That I'm picking up like
not
a
the best
guy
wagon.
Who's not gonna be like a rock star to me, and
right?
Like pay for my dinners.
I think that's a very, very, very big deal to her. But she doesn't want to come off as someone who that's a big deal to, And so it's, But I think that's the underlying thing here. And
I mean, they kind of make up by the end, they're joking about deodorant.
They go back to deflecting. They deflect
smell.
out of the discomfort.
We're back to
smells. But
smells.
it's there. It's there for sure. And it will continue to be there. We leave them and head over to Lydia and Milton on their date that, despite being at a place with rocks, does not rock.
I mean, it's on the rocks, as the title says.
You rocked that joke.
I did rock it.
Yeah. Dinner starts off okay. So when you and I were watching this, one thing we could not stop laughing about was just the presence of this server.
Yeah, he keeps showing. I can't remember. I'm not seeing them, but
he's like pouring wine.
I can't remember. They keep showing up exactly as the conversation is turning a little bit darker. So they'll like say like a few like really nice things, and then all of a sudden they'll say like something kind of like arguey, and then like the server arrives and begins pouring a little bit of wine, and they're just like they're trying to ignore it and continue this conversation. And then I all I could imagine is just that person going back to like a back room where all the food is, and they're just kind of like, dude, I can't. They keep arguing. No, you have to take the food out. The producer said you have to take the food out. But they're arguing right now. Like,
no, do it now. Do it now. It can't just be them at the table. It just seemed so directed.
Yeah, and it just kept the timing of it was just really comical.
Yeah. Despite their many tense moments. Anyway, if you end up watching this again, or you listen to this episode before you actually watch the show, which, hey, maybe that happens, like, pay attention to this server. He's sort of like the Renee of this scene. Like this, the other character that's there. Yeah, but
I mean,
on the scene, so they get in a big fight.
Yeah, and I mean, it starts with Milton saying something that I honestly didn't think he would ever say, even though, even just based on the little editing that we've seen, seems to be true, which is, hey, you're different than you were in the pods. Mm-hmm. And yeah, based on the editing that we see, that is the case, right? We see that they are, that Lydia is like kind of upset a lot of the time, in the sense that she like gets upset with him about a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And essentially like to Milton, that seems to be a big problem. And when he expresses that to Lydia, it does not go well. And she immediately kind of turns the tables and is like, well, if I'm upset, it's your fault. Yeah.
What,
And
I have to say, I was on Lydia's side with that comment.
no, I mean,
Yeah.
100%. And it also, but it just, like, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And she's like calling him out on like this, you know, he didn't wash these dishes for three days. And
'cause
like,
she keeps telling him this is important to her. This is a big deal.
yeah.
And he doesn't do it. And so I think for her, she's like, and now you're going to tell me that I just was upset out of nowhere, like I'm some irrational person, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. And
Yeah,
she does then say, like, hey, you also said you're not messy, and you are. And he's like, oh, I just said I'm not organized. And so, you know, the kind of like to the point that I'd made, I think it was last episode, like, it's not like there's a single person here who's like, I'm flawless and I have zero flaws and I deal perfectly with everybody. Everybody's got a little bit of trouble dealing with others, which, you know, I guess one could argue that's what brings one to a dating show to find somebody to marry, right? That they have trouble, you know, relating to others emotionally and dealing with certain things, you know, that
certainly on this season. I don't know if I want to say that like globally,
Right,
but
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true about the 4 people.
yes.
Oh no, that we're watching here is like, you know, you can see it. You can see what some of their challenges are, right? Like Lydia really is honing in on this, that he's dirty, and sometimes that's something that you have to decide, like, this is who he is. If I keep mentioning it and it keeps not getting better, and I don't think he's just trying to disrespect me, although maybe she does think that, but if you don't, then at some level you just have to be like, this is, you know, the price of admission of being with you, is I'm gonna have a dirtier house than I would like.
Yeah, totally.
So it is on her for expecting him to be different than how he is to some extent. And also she is adjusting to that. So I can see how she doesn't like, first of all, that she's upset in the first place, and then to be told, hey, you just wake up upset, probably feels like Milton is not taking any accountability.
Yeah.
On multiple levels.
Also that he's not like taking her emotions seriously, as though they're like just capricious and random.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yeah.
Like I guess he doesn't really, he keeps saying like there's no reason, like you wake up upset for no reason. And to Lydia's point, there's always a reason. Now she says that it's always something that he's done, which, damn, if you wake up, if you're in a 40-day engagement total and you wake up
angry in the morning,
repeatedly waking up angry in the morning, that's not a great sign. Also, can I just say, 41 minutes and 16 seconds, the sentence that Milton is saying is, you don't think I like compromising with you when I don't want to? And that is the moment that a server comes in and is like, oh, I have to pour a bottle of wine. Oh no!
It take a really long time pouring it.
He just asked this question, and now she has to answer, and I'm still here. Is she gonna? I hope she doesn't answer while I'm still here. Please don't answer while I'm still here.
Weird enough thing that you're just like, you know, he's probably an actor, right? And it's like you're playing a server in a rock museum while 2 people are the only people dining and they're fighting. Fun fact: when you pause it just then to read the line, I saw that the episode was named Love on the Rocks, which now it's clicking for me.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. That's the name of the episode. Yeah. I didn't make that joke as an original joke. I made it as an illusion.
I'm here now. I'm getting it now.
Also, what I just noticed as we're talking about this is that they have a big rock in the middle of their table. Did you notice that?
Of course they do.
They don't have flowers. They have just a big salt lamp.
How could they have flowers? How could they not have a rock? Yeah. But then the fight now turns to Milton saying he did not like how Lydia handled that conflict with Uche.
Yeah. And it's interesting that he says, I don't judge you, but I would have done it differently. In what
do you mean?
what I mean is that he seems pretty judgmental about it. He seems to have an opinion about this, because if he wasn't judgmental, if he was just saying like, I would have handled things differently, I feel like he wouldn't be bringing this up. But it's something that he's clearly like sitting, like it's off for him, like it's bothering him, and at that point he's making a judgment. It's making him feel a certain way, and he's just not saying how it's making him feel. He's just saying, I would have done things differently. He's not saying the way you did things is making me feel a particular way. He's not saying how it's making him feel, you know? Whereas on the other hand, Lydia is proud of the way she handled that situation because she feels like she walked away from it.
So to me, it said he's saying, I'm not judging you because he's trying to share difficult feedback and doesn't want to make her upset.
Right.
But yeah, I agree that there is, of course, a judgment in there that the way that she is not the way that he would like her to be.
Yeah. And I will say, I'm now realizing I think I addressed this conversation in our previous episode. I thought this conversation awkward. We watched both episodes and then we recorded these two. So kind of confused a couple of things, but yes, the conversation that they're having at this rock museum is and by the way, I'm pretty sure it's not exclusively a rock museum. It's like a natural history museum.
Yeah.
But
stay tuned, listeners. We get the stuff that really matters for you.
Totally. Look,
the presence of the waiter, the rock.
Look, I know that there's some Houston people being like, "That's not a rock museum. We don't have a rock museum."
Podcast on the rocks.
That's in Austin. Only Austin has a rock museum.
Oh.
But yeah.
This is a rock and frog museum. Houston's only. Okay, but yes, we come into their foundational conflict, which is Milton saying, you are very passionate, you don't control your emotions, and
a phrase he says as the server is bringing a salad. You don't control your emotions, Lydia.
And basically, I need you to calm down. Yeah, is what he's telling her. And she's saying, I don't feel supported by you. You're telling me that you don't like a foundational thing of who I am. And you're telling me that the way I am is unacceptable. I think for Milton, he's trying to express it like, this is a character trait I observe about you, or a way of reacting, or a part of you. And Lydia's taking it as, this is my identity. It's not just like a part of me, it's my identity. And for me, that kind of brought up a dynamic that you and I were talking about earlier, which is like, for her, she is like a Latinx woman, and being told that you're too emotional is a way that identity can get really kind of shot down. You know, it's something I'm sure has encountered before, is that like she's the loud Latinx woman. And so now she's being told that, which is obviously like a very painful thing to hear and comes with like so many dynamics and layers behind it. Now she's being told that by someone she's about to marry. So I don't think it's for her. It's capable of being like, you know, like him saying like, I wish you liked sushi and you don't, you know, like it's not something minor. It's who I am, who I represent, what my culture is, what my background is. You telling me that is dismissing my identity.
Yeah, it's a way of othering, and it is like also. It's also something that he seems to like. Again, to my statement earlier, where he seems to say things about Lydia, and then it's really unclear whether he means them as a positive or a negative until he follows it up. Like he was saying, she's explosive. I love that about her. And yet, that exact same thing is the thing that he is then complaining about to her, right? So he's simultaneously like, I love that about her, and also I hate that about her.
He's drawn to what's exotic, and also it's different than what he thought it would be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And to your point, I think there's also that cultural, racial dynamic too, is that the way that he's grown up, he's I'm sure experienced, maybe even been taught explicitly that you are not allowed to get emotional. Society will not give that to you. You have to present within this.
It's dangerous.
Narrow. Right. Yeah. You could actually be harmed if you express your emotions too loudly. So he's grown up with that. She's grown up in very different, and this is, I do think this is a big part of this dynamic.
Yeah.
And maybe on some level it's like on his mind raising kids and how will that go. I don't know how explicitly that would be there, but I'm sure that would be a factor. So that underpinned a lot of what was happening here. Because there was a way in which, like, if I were dating somebody or I guess engaged to somebody, and we had a very different way of processing a conflict at a party, that would bother me, and I would want to talk about it. So I would want to be able to do that. So I do appreciate that they're trying to have this conversation, because he's trying to give feedback, and that's important. But so many other things get lit up here.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, something that has only just occurred to me as this scene is going on, as they're kind of arguing about things, is that they're on like their final date, right?
We saw right before the weddings. Yeah.
We saw Stacy and Izzy, they're in this fancy place. They're dressed up. Cut to Lydia and Milton. Lydia's wearing a nice, pink dress. He's wearing a wrinkled black t-shirt. Just a wrinkled black t-shirt.
It's easier to take a piss with those on.
He just pulled it out of a closet.
Yeah.
Come on, man. It's your last date.
He's 24, and he probably didn't hang it. That's her big thing.
It's that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he grabbed that off the floor.
Yeah. It's also he's feeling judged about who he is. He is too. He's I'm just a messy dude. Do you not see all the other things that I do to support you? And he does do a lot of things to support her. So she is kind of fixated on this. If this is the only thing he's doing wrong, then maybe, or wrong according to her, then maybe think about whether you can accept that or not, right? But
yeah,
it is a pretty bad fight and does not really get resolved.
Yeah, I mean, there's also Lydia kind of splitting hairs. There's we're not having an argument, we're having a disagreement.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
His response is good. He's like, okay, whatever you want to call it, I don't like it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of things kind of like flying between each other. You don't listen. You don't know me. You like Milton kind of saying everything I do for you to protect you, and I'm like, okay, you guys are talking in some big absolutes about certain things that I feel I think it, part of it is his youth, but part of it is just the fact that they haven't known each other that long,
I think for Lydia too, yes, it's his youth. Yeah, yes, they haven't known each other that long. For her to, he's not what she thought she'd end up with. She's dated guys the last guy she dated with, I don't even want to say his name. It's like Voldemort or something. And he's clearly ripped, right? So I'm sure she's dated guys who are more like that, and Milton is not, and he's like a young, like kind of nerdy dude. So that's there too.
Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, this argument kind of reaches a kind of a boiling point when Milton says a thing that you probably should have kept inside, which is like you've told me for the millionth time or something like that. Just really kind of giving this indication of like how, like, just about a thing that he thinks about their dynamic, about their interaction, that he probably doesn't feel real good to be told that.
Yeah, it sets her off, and she takes some space, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she comes back while he's continuing to eat some salad. Because, ultimately we're here to have a meal.
And he has a defiant side to him too, right? That came up with his family. It's coming up with her.
Yeah. And I mean, it has come, I mean, we've seen it even in that, like, I don't believe in hyphenating. Like, he has a defiant side that's just like, no, this is how I do things. I don't care.
And there are two apologies. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry that I don't abide by your expectations are the two most non-apologies.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if is not an apology. I'm sorry that you don't accept me is not an apology.
Yeah.
Yeah, they might just need some time to cool down. But this is not a great fight to be having.
But yeah, and to the thing that I mentioned last episode, which is Milton's defending Lydia was very much like just kind of not taking a side. And I think it's coming out, particularly in a situation like this, that like, hold on a second, if this is the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, like, I get that you're saying everybody's got their own side, but if this is the person you want to spend the rest of your life with and you believe in this person, then believe this person. Don't believe the person who you spent.
Yeah,
like,
take her side. Yeah.
Like, Uche might say he's your friend, but ultimately you didn't spend time in a pod with him talking about your, like, even honestly, even with the amount of time that they spent to, like, the guys spent together between dates, I bet you it's like a total of an hour, maybe a couple of hours in between, like, filming things. Like, it can't be that much time that they're spending together compared to, like, the amount of time that they're spending with their dates. So it's like messed up that he's not taking her side, and yet he's like, I trust you, I believe you, we're gonna get married. It's a difficult thing to not show trust in your partner.
And for her too, I'm sure she wants someone who's more, I don't know, like that strong alpha. Yeah. Who's gonna like come in and take, punch Uche in the face or something,
Yeah.
And that's not him. So they had that emotional connection. She came at a time when she came to be interested in him at a time when she was just rejected. So Milton felt very safe, but he's not what she thought she'd end up with, right? And that's a big deal for her, and for him, he thought he was getting like a nerdy rock chick, and she's different. Yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah, and despite the fact that the scene ends with them holding hands and saying "I love you," I don't know.
It feels very unresolved.
Right.
But that is the end of the episode. We then get a preview of what's to come.
Yeah.
And I just continue to be, I don't know what people are going to say. I could speculate. I mean, do you want to give your thoughts on that? On what people are going to say at the altar?
Oh, I think there's a high chance Izzy and Stacy are going to say yes, and that Milton and Lydia are gonna. Now I'm kind of thinking both say no. Maybe Stacy's gonna say no and Izzy's gonna say yes. Maybe there's that, but I feel like ultimately, yeah, I don't think Lydia and Milton are working out, and I think that it might be both of them. How about you?
Yeah, it's hard to say because they both, we've just been all over the place with the stories that we've been getting from them based on the editing. So it's hard to track what is really going on, but my sense is I think Lydia would say yes, but Milton will say no. Stacy and Izzy,
I could see that for sure.
I think she'll end up saying no.
Yeah, so you're
Yeah.
a no on Milton and Stacy. A no on Milton and Lydia. No, Milton and Stacy. Sorry, Milton and Stacy. You're saying no to, like that they're gonna say no.
Yes, that both of them, yes, will be the members of the couple that say no. Not
Yeah.
that they'll not. Yeah.
Milton and Stacy are gonna say no.
I
Right.
kind of think so. We'll see. We'll
We'll
find
see.
out, and then if anyone does say yes, then like for sure they're not together at the reunion. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
This is just gonna be a 10 episode thing. Nobody says yes. There's no reunion.
that's it.
Has there ever been a
All
no
right.
reunion?
Well, let us know. Yeah, I don't know. They always have a reunion.
Okay. All right.
I mean, it's got to be like a really inexpensive way to get everybody tuned in. So, yeah, let us know what you think. Leave us comments about what you think is going to happen with these couples.
Like and subscribe.
And follow us.
Follow our podcast. Follow our Instagram. And we will see you in about a week,
Yeah,
right?
a little bit less than that.
A little bit less than
Yeah,
a
it
week.
comes out soon. And we'll be here, so we can record it.
Right.
Okay.
All right. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.